might hit a turbine and then they would turn on. So it's not that radar would do something to hurt the turbines, it's that we would have a radar system in to keep the lights off unless planes were coming through, and then they would turn on to warn them. But there's another product that's out there as well that makes lights shine at a lower intensity so that you can, if it's a clear night, you don't have to have them as bright as they always are. So I was going to work in, they're both mentioned in here already, but I was going to work in some factors on it. What the town, how the town might choose between them. And the planning board's still working on all this, but so I wasn't going to get into it too deep with the town until, you know, we had a proposal from the planning board, but I thought since this letter came out that maybe you'd like to see what they're talking about. For wildlife, one of the things that we put in the draft law was, you know, basically turbines kill so many birds or bats, and they take different steps to try and make it so that they don't, and it's not a giant number of them, but they do kill some. And so one of the things that they do in order to make it so that there's not as large of an environmental impact is say, well, if you're going to kill X number of bats and you're going to do some sort of conservation program to let more of them live over here, or if this might kill 3 bald eagles over its life, you're going to, you know, find a place where you're going to allow more bald eagles to stay alive. And one of the things that I was noticing on the other wind projects that I was doing was that some of the environmental benefit was being done down, particularly related to bats, down in the Long Island area. I think because it's easier for them to do it down there, but it's still in the state, so DEC was basically satisfied with it. And I had drafted in some criteria that said, you know, basically, if you're going to do mitigation, you should try and do it as close to the project area as you can. And so, you know, they're concerned that might make it too difficult for them to mitigate. And I don't know how big it is.
They'd have to get out of their leather chairs.
Yeah. Then for shadow flicker, we had it at 25 hours of shadow flicker annually for non-participating and 30 for participating, which participating would be anyone with an easement agreement or a good neighbor agreement, agreement with a wind company basically. And you know, their comment was that, you know, 94C has 30 hours of shadow flicker annually for non-participating, and that's it. But, you know, a lot of this stuff that I put in here, I based off of my experience with the Article 10 process and reviewing other certificates in the Article 10 process. And I've got the other thing I put in the folder was excerpts from some of the other Article 10 certificates, which I know this isn't Article 10, but it's, you know, it's a state, it's similar, it's state citing that's going on. Which I wanted to mention as well, the Article 10 has similar language to 94C that essentially says if the towns have unduly restrictive laws, that you can override them. And what my experience has been that the companies have not. I mean, they may do it this time, but I think they don't want to spend a lot of the legal money and development money to end up with uncertainty on whether the project's going to go through, and wait a couple, 2 or 3 years for you know, to go through the court system to see whether they're going to be able to build a project and whether a town law is reasonable. I know that, for example, in Barron, they haven't ended up going into Fremont. Tom, what was they're not in Fremont now, right?
No.
And that was largely because of the town laws, right?
Well, everything was approved with the siting board, everything was all finalized and went to 500, and then as soon as that was done with the siting board, they come back and wanted to go to 650.
Right, and so they didn't start litigation over that, did they?
No, they haven't yet, but on the other hand, they haven't waived, you know, people's good neighbor agreements. They're still in place, and we haven't gotten anything officially saying that they're not coming. So I don't know if they're waiting and gonna try and sell it to somebody else and try and put it under 94C. There's so many ands, ifs, and buts, you know.
Well, that's just been my, like, you know, all the Barron, 8 Point, Canisteo, they were all interested in going into Hartsville on the front end as well. And Hartsville had laws that were clearly designed, it wasn't even like Fremont's. Fremont's laws were much closer to allowing a project than like what Hartsville had. Hartsville had it where you could put like 2 turbines in the whole town, and you would have had to, you know, create a mile of road to get out to them. And, you know, none of the companies didn't go, and even though they had leases with some of the people there, they didn't go and sue Hartsville to make it so they could do the project there. But, you know, that doesn't mean they never will. It's just anecdotally, that's what I've seen happen. Now, in Article 10, they had that language in Article 10 that was, like I said, similar to the 94C language, but what's added into the 94C language is they can balance the reasonableness out against basically the governor's, you know, green energy. So they do have a little extra language in there. They'll take a look at probably an economic analysis of you know, how good they might be able to make it if they got to fight over, you know, over it, so.
Well, they converted, this project that Prattsburg was started in Article 10.
Yes.
And there's a letter from Young and Summer on the website.
Yeah.
Where they could convert, so it wouldn't surprise me if Fremont, they did the same thing to Fremont, because it's more beneficial to be in 94 feet.
Yeah.
Not by a wide margin, but certainly some.
Well, it'll be a quicker process. I think that's one of the things that they're looking at. So anyways, on the shadow flicker, the way that the proposed Avoca law is drafted, and I think they're probably going to be changing it, is in line with the strictest, one of the strictest certificates we've seen. I think in Barron they had 20 hours for non-participating and 30 hours for participating in their certificate. So you look at this letter and they make it sound like this stuff is sort of wildly out of you know, proportion to other things that are going on, but I don't think it really is that much. And you know, I was looking at that. These maps are the Flickr maps right here. So I was going to leave one of these here, but it's kind of awkward. You know, right now, on the whole project, the way that it's set up, here, let's see, pass it around. There is there's 3 receptors, which would be people's houses that are non-participating, that are receiving more than 30 hours annually. Okay. So, you know, Howard's down in this area. And,
You have 3 in the whole project?
3 in the whole project.
3 in the project.
So I asked him, one of the things that I told him is I want a map of everybody, the kind of hours, you know, that the participating people included on there. And I think that these generally are all the different receptors, but the green is non-participating over 30. So I think, and I need to confirm with Kevin, because I just got this today, that if you see a little black mark like that one right here by 27, that's probably a participating receptor that's over 30, because this is the...
What are the black dots?
The black dots are any receptor, so that's anybody's house, but the green is the...
But these that are over, it's only 31, that's only 1 over.
Yeah.
This is 24 and 23.
No, those are the turbine numbers.
Yeah, so this is.
So it's the color.
It's 254, what's that mean?
It can be only one. These are over by Emerald,
2, 3, 4.
what's it called, Welch?
Welch Road, that's about Homer.
Yeah.
There's
So,
flights down there.
these colors show the number of hours.
place and
All right.
I
then.
think this is the one, I think 31 is the last one, so someone
Somebody
just.
near her and all.
So, but they do the same thing for sound. It's different for sound. For sound, there's there's more like, well, it's sort of like rings, but that'll show, that basically they'll have a 20, 30, 40, 50 decibel rating, 60 decibels. And it'll show where it hits the different receptors. So there's gonna be a lot of data for everybody to be able to see and look at on exactly how everybody's affected. And it's good to have this data while you're drafting the laws, because you can see what it is that, you know, that the laws would do. So, I'll just see this out a little bit. All right, for sound levels, thanks, Don. We had listed 40 decibels that are basically a nighttime average over the course of the year. And for non-participating, 50 for participating. And it was a little higher during the day. So they were, you know, trying to push those up a little bit. I'm not gonna go through all the minutiae here, just kind of hitting the highlights. And you can also see what was done in this, that's why I cut out these excerpts here. That's not every single certificate, but it's information. And the setbacks, we were discussing a 2.5 time turbine height setback, and they're saying that basically 2.2 would be more reasonable. Now, on, one of the other issues they had was related to salvage value, and we were saying that they need to take, that they cannot take the salvage value into account when we're figuring out a for a bond or other type of security for the project. And I don't think that's gonna be a problem. They said they're not gonna oppose it, and I don't think that they would win on that issue if they did. That's been generally, pretty much been the standard. So I just wanted to give you guys that update. I'm gonna be working with the planning board, working through this stuff. If you guys have comments about it or wanna talk to me about it, give me a call. I'll go over any of it with you. I think I had another thing that I wanted to mention. Yeah, just talking about sound. I think I gave you one of these before. This is the DEC standard for assessing and mitigating noise impacts. It's been kind of the standard for sound impact throughout the state for since 1991. And, you know, to put into perspective the sound levels that we're talking about, in the low 30s, low 30 decibels is soft whisper at 15 feet. About 35 decibels library. Low 40s is bedroom. Mid 40s is living room. Low 50s is light auto traffic. So you guys want this left here, I can leave that there too.
You got that in the other folder you gave us.
Yeah, that's a DEC standard, so. That's about all that
Back to the county for a minute. Where I sent one of your associates, Court of Appeals decision.
Yeah, actually, I had already passed that information on to the county attorney before he sent it to us. But, so you guys are able to basically recover, and the county discussed that in admin this month. So, you know, the county understands that towns are gonna be able to recover demolition costs, basically zombie costs, so, when they're re-levied into the taxes.
That's for the whole state, right?
Yeah, it was a Court of Appeals decision, so that's policy, lawmaking, authority that they are.
But you're aware that Steuben County sent a letter to the towns in 2012 specifically saying you can't do that. That was a resolution of the, you must have been, were you on the board then, maybe?
That was,
Yeah, that was a resolution, it was signed by Harusky, it was forwarded to me by the supervisor, town of Corning, that said, essentially, towns, don't try it. So I sent a card to Mr. Van Etten, saying, I assume that is now moved, is that correct? But I haven't heard back from him, so maybe you could, ask him.
Generally, you're there, when you send them cards.
Quite often. One of my constituents.
Be careful
My
when you
constituents.
send cards.
You're right.
any other, anything else?
Yeah, cookies too. I see the Delta's expanding again.
Yeah, it's always expanding, that's the nature of the dog.
I need a place for all those winter lights.
That was kind of my point in asking.
Yeah,
There you go.
Is that in addition to what they bought
Green.
2 years ago? Or just more of the
No, it's
same?
related, yeah, it's
Okay,
related.
so they bought the land, now they're trying to get the permits to operate on the land.
Yeah, the last time, so the last time that the landfill was expanding, it was kind of funny, we had to do this vote on the secret form. And it was basically pro forma, all these boxes were checked. There's not gonna be any noise, there's not gonna be any odors, all this kind of stuff. And I said, do we really believe there's not gonna be any odors from, expanding the landfill? Everybody, Vince Spagnoletti was up there and said, there will be more odors, and everybody still voted to approve the study. Well, not everybody.
They got a cogeneration house there, right? That's all cogen. They capture the methane.
No,
Yeah, they
so
across the street there.
That is,
the
that's
methane.
shut down right now.
Oh, it
That's
is?
the leachate plant.
Yeah, but we're working on that. We have some good things in the hopper, I believe, on yeah, Steuben Rural Electric, did their estimates on that at like, I don't know, 7 cent, what is it, kilowatt, what is the, when you buy your electricity?
Rural electric.
What's the measure?
Over about
Kilowatt.
Kilowatt.
Kilowatt. They measured it at like 7 cents a kilowatt hour, what they should do their budget on, and it's like 3 or 4. So they lost the shirt off their back on this.
Yeah. When you're getting, REA buys, or Steuben Electric buys their electricity from NYSEG.
Yeah.
And your power costs you like 0.025 cents a kilowatt. And your distribution is 20 cents.
Yeah.
So,
Not 20.
yeah. So, go figure.
Thank you. I gotta take one of these maps.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Did you, didn't you?
Yeah, you go, you wanna?
I don't know if we have any other old business.
Everybody wants to read the 94C thing, I have one copy of my own. It's legally most of it, but it's all right there.
So before you get on to anything else, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I kind of wanted to walk out of here. There's a lot of concerned windmill people here. I need to walk out of here knowing that, or partially knowing, if this project is going forward, whether we like it or not. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this. And if that's the case,
I don't think
just
that's
say,
entirely true if enough people raise a stink.
okay.
That's what happened in Prattsburg.
But I asked the question earlier, if there's enough landowners that give the okay, that don't matter if the.
That
well,
is
That's
true.
true too.
All right, so you know, is it worth pursuing this? I mean, I don't want it, I mean, it's clearly everybody knows